Welcome, everyone. Crafty Chat number 34. I'm Heidi and joined by Nancy and Lucy. So this is basically our anniversary episode. The first Crafty Chat that we ever did premiered on April 8th, and that was just Nancy and I, and it was kind of like our pilot. So more of the official start, I think, is when Lucy joined us in episode 2, and we've just been rocking from there. So we used to do it every week. And then as services started to, we had more reopening of the library, we started to do it more like twice a week because that's more manageable. And after this one, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break until, I think, the summertime. So this is great to have, though, this closure. And we're just so thankful to all the people that keep watching, and we hear from you. And I love your comments and our questions. And so... I guess one thing we were talking about was like maybe favorite episodes. I don't know if we want to start with that at all, because I was just thinking about, we've had so much fun with a lot of our guests, so I'm looking forward to having more guests in the future. Just the different kinds of work people do. Like we had like Anne with her natural dyes and astrophotography, and just like really, I don't know. So I guess it's like the process of doing this podcast is like educational for us. We get to learn so much that we might not spend time with otherwise. But I'm just going to quickly run down what some of my favorite episodes were. I'm not going to do like I did when we did the books, and I had like 18,000 books to go through. So I just mentioned that like the museums one I thought was really great. And on that note, I happened to see an article today that the Louvre has put their entire collection online. So that's another thing you can add to your interactive virtual museum visits. Interactive websites was a cool one, just like all those different sites to play and explore, and how I was surprised Lucy got addicted to that pottery game.
Oh, yeah. I was so good at that.
Actually, I went through a phase where I was really addicted to it too, like a couple months after that episode. And it was just so much fun. I liked it a lot.
And then I just had like our rabbit holes, art versus craft. That was a really fun one to discuss too. So I did well with this. I just did 4. So I don't know if anybody else had anything to chime in.
I really liked all the guests that we've had on. When Heidi, and we talked about this a little bit in a past episode where we tried really hard and we were planning. One second. Hey, Dad. I'm sorry, we are recording the podcast. So. I'm going to give you a minute, but my dad's headed down to the pool, so he's trying to get all this stuff together.
Oh. That's okay.
So I really enjoyed having a bunch of different guests on the podcast. That was one of the things that Heidi and I talked about early on when we were planning before we even started recording for the podcast was we wanted to have lots of different types of crafters. And we did talk about this in an earlier episode. It might have been somewhere in the mid-20s, maybe 25 or 26, where that was our goal with the podcast, was to bring a bunch of different creators together and really talk about the creative process and find the commonalities for all the different mediums to see what we do, why we do it, how we do it, the things that we're making. So I really loved hearing from other people and seeing those commonalities. I loved the episode with Toby because I find a lot of the stuff that he does with like woodworking really, really fascinating. And it's something that I'd like to get into eventually. But talking to so many different creators has actually helped me branch out into other areas. So being more mindful of like the pictures that I'm taking or the photography that I'm doing after we talk to Amy, or even being more aware of the cooking that I'm doing after we had that episode with Katie. So it just it really helped branch out my mind of the way that I'm looking at my world. So like the podcast, recording it and interacting with so many different people has really affected my day-to-day life, I think. And it's kind of stuck, which is I really like.
Yeah, I would agree about some of my favorite episodes being the ones with guests, and for all the reasons you both said. But I think too, it's really cool to see how people are like mini experts on things. You know, like how if you become passionate about something, you learn everything you can to get really good at it. And there's such a wide range of ways you can be creative. I'm like guests who came on who are like, why are you have me on your Crafty Chat? And it's like you're using your mind you're doing something different, but you're using your mind creatively. And I agree, Nancy, that they were like inspiring too, and got me thinking about different ways to do things. Even just like talking to Amanda, the last guest we had, about her embroidery, I was like, well, now I want to get back to embroidery. And I realized like you can do it just with one color and simple lines and create something really cool. So I thought the episodes with the guests were really interesting. And I really liked the art versus craft. That was on my list too. Just because I like the way that conversation went, and I think that we worked to highlight the importance of like women in history, basically, and so I'm glad we touched on that.
Yeah. Me too. That was one of my favorite episodes, and it's funny to me the ones that stick out in my memory. For some reason, our Sweet 16 episode where we went back of the creating that we did when we were younger, when we were teenagers. Yeah. That really stuck with me, and it still bothers me that I cannot find a lot of the journals and stuff that I know I kept when I was in high school, and a lot of the art and stuff. So I don't know why that stuck with me, but for some reason it really bothered me. I'm like, what did I do with those things? I know that they're around, but yeah.
They'll show up.
That's a weird one.
So one thing we were talking about too with this is just like the coming together and talking regularly, like kind of is like documenting our creative process over the year in a way that you would not have given focus to it otherwise. I think, it's like, yeah, you're working on projects. We would get together for wool gathering and kind of check in with what each other's working on or something, but not quite in a way. I think it's just more focused doing it this way, right? Even though it's not like we did it every episode that we talked about. Maybe off camera we talked about our stuff. So I guess our question was about like, how has that changed you in your process creatively, or your planning, or that kind of thing? I think I'm asking the question correctly that we were.
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about. I kept really good track of my knitting and crochet projects before we started the podcast, but that's really from the podcast and from seeing you guys regularly, talking about crafting regularly, has helped me keep better track of all of the different types of projects that I'm doing. So the videos have formed to, they've almost like made me more likely to document the things that I'm working on. So I started a Pinterest board a while back that has all the projects that I've worked on over the last year. Originally it was called like COVID crafting, because it was all the projects that I was planning on doing when we were in quarantine. And that kind of spilled over into the rest of the year of just, the things that I had finished, the things that I was working on. And I ended up transferring all of that into a binder. So I had physical copies. And I really liked watching myself do that and having that record of where things are going, or like how things are going, the things that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I stayed a little more connected to projects, than I don't know. It's like you think, well, you craft all the time. Like, how are you not connected to what you're working on? But I think it kept things more in my mind. Although, interestingly, I was looking at a list of things and I completely forgot about the leg warmers I was going to be working on.
Oh, no.
I think I was like still working on how I was going to make, the pattern I was going to use. And so, because I'm making it up as I go, of course, winging it. And I think it just got set aside because I finished a shawl and there was like a huge mistake in it. So I took that shawl apart. So now I'm working on that again because I want to work on this other shawl that I am doing simultaneously. That's part of a knit along. So I think I'm like, those things took over, but so it's like on the one hand, clarity, but not clarity in the fog or something. What about you, Lucy?
Well, I think talking about all the things that we were working on helped me. Well, it's kind of it helped me, I wouldn't say become less picky about my work, but choosing where I am picky. For instance, like I might have tried knitting a new thing and I enjoyed the experience of knitting it. I didn't love the way it ended up, but I tried to be okay with that. Like, you know what, this is great. I learned a couple new stitches. Like I learned a new process here. This is not for me, this finished product, but it wasn't a waste of time because I learned something. But then like in other things where I'm doing something I've done before and I see a mistake, it's like, no, I'm not going to leave that this time. Like I know how to fix that. Here's where I can be picky and try to be, you know. So I guess it was like learning to like value the process, but also realize when the product was going to be important. And somehow talking about it all the time, all this stuff is just more in the forefront of your mind, I guess.
Yeah, I feel that really keenly too. It's the thought I had while you're talking is that like trust the process of having the podcast and really talking about recording and having that record. Just, God, I feel like a broken record when I'm saying this. It makes me more mindful of the choices that I'm making when I'm making things. We talked a lot about in the beginning process versus product, and you mentioned that too, Lucy, of different. I'm more aware to differentiate between the two instead of just walking into a project with just like, I have this idea, I'm going to just do this and see how it goes. I think now that I'm more aware of the way that I make things and the way that my brain works when I'm forming an idea helps me produce a better product. And the road along the way is a little bit smoother, where I can kind of anticipate where the problems are going to be. And also, if there's a problem, I feel like I'm more flexible now than I was a year ago to problem solve it. I may procrastinate a little bit more because I'm unhappy about the mistake, but I'm more, I know a little bit more about myself. It was kind of that self-reflective action of part of documenting my crafting has been really beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's the only way I finished that Afghan.
Afghan is so cute. It's so pretty. And that picture you posted of Simon laying on it was adorable. I was so happy.
He is cute. But yeah, that accountability goes a long way.
Right.
It does. Yeah.
So then the other thing that we've kind of spawned from this Crafty Chat was the Creativebug daily challenges, which have been tremendous. How many? I should have had a better list. I didn't count. We've done 6, I think. Maybe 7.
Yeah, roundabouts that, I think.
At first doing it daily was okay, and then it started to become hard to do it every day because, you know, as we were doing more of the services are growing that we're offering at the library, more of our time was put into that. But still, it's very worthwhile to do these Creativebug challenges, and it's a great. So anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that I think I've become addicted to Creativebug. Like I just go in and watch a lot more of these programs, and some stuff I'm probably not gonna do, but so doing the art book challenge has just, I'm spinning off into art books now. I'm just like totally. So there's like an innovative art or innovative book structures that I watched that's inspiring me to work on another art book. Right now I'm doing my book of weavings. I still have an idea for doing one about the alphabet, like your personal alphabet. I was reading an article in Pulp about this writer, Christine Hume, and she's talking about, she does a, what kind of poetry class? A sound poetry. And one of her assignments in there is to write a poem using the letters of your name, your first and last name, because that's like, those are the letters you learn the first, like that's the alphabet you first really learn, that you get familiar with. So, I don't know. So yeah, I'd love to take that class actually, because so now I have to like create my own assignment based on that, but yeah. So anyway, Creativebug challenges. I guess I just feel like they've really rekindled my desire and drive for being more experimental in what I'm doing. And just more comfortable with play. Like I feel like I'm more organized with all my supplies, and I can just dip into doodling or coloring, and I don't know. It's just I have a lot more ease with that. So I don't know. What do you guys have to share about Creativebug?
It definitely opened up the mediums that I'm comfortable working with. I felt it really hard when you said, like, at first it was easy to do the daily practices and then it got really difficult. The one where there were two of those that really kind of crashed my creative process for a couple weeks, and it was the watercolor brush lettering and then the crochet. I don't know why the crochet took me so long, but that, like, everything else ground to a standstill, and that was the only thing that I wanted to work on. So it was like, I'm still kind of unpacking why that happened and why that took me so long to recover from. But I can't believe the comfortability that I have with newer mediums, especially watercolor and drawing. I'm out of town right now, and one of the things along with my knitting that I brought was all of my watercolor stuff. I was like, oh, I'm going to have a bunch of downtime. So, I've got these watercolor classes on Creativebug that I've been wanting to go through, and I've done like 4 or 5 days out of some of these creative challenges, and I'm having a blast with it. And it's really, my watercolor book is propping up my computer right now, so I can't like open them and show you what I've been working on. But I'll take some pictures and we'll see what we can put in the video. But I'm having so much fun with watercolor. I love it. It's really, really good. But yeah, the practice, we talked a little bit about when we were planning the things that have stuck for us from the creative challenges. And I think a lot of the things with the Courtney Cerruti daily challenges that we've done have stuck for me. So, using the things that you see every day as inspiration for projects that you want to work on, or drawing every day, or just that action of being creative for a small portion of every day has really helped my mental health out of the majority of things that we've done over the last year. That having that little bit of time for art and for play especially has really, really helped my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I found with the Creativebug challenges that, like, I loved learning new things, like the embroidery for me, this thing I'd been holding off on for so long, and I loved doing that. But then I also think it was a good reminder of things that I like the art book, for instance. My favorite part of that was kind of cutting out little things and making collages, and I used to do that all the time and make cards all the time. And it was like something got rekindled, like, hey, you really love this. You love this process of, and actually, so then I just on my own did the artist trading card class that Courtney Cerruti does, because I used to make those too. And that was a program I was going to do at the library last year. And I had so much fun. I can see myself now, that's just going to be, because you have this tiny canvas, that's the only place you're limited, but in watching that, it's like I was able to use pieces of things we've made in our Creativebug challenges, but then also just like things we've picked up that we've learned along the way. And then I think one other way that the Creativebug challenges have helped me is they've made me go back to foundations in other things. Like, I think one thing I learned from some of the daily challenges is that like the crochet one, she starts you at the very beginning, even though you're just making these squares, So with like knitting, that's made me go back to TiinCanKnits and start and just do like the really basic hat. And I'm gonna do a lace shawl they have on there that's free, the Gothic lace shawl, I think, because they kind of provide a lesson with it. I know how to knit lace, but I see a value in just returning to the foundations of things occasionally. I think we talked about this, Heidi, even with yoga. Like you don't give up the foundational stuff when you've gotten to the more advanced stuff, So I think doing all those challenges where you had to start at the beginning of something kind of made me want to go back and start at the beginning of some other crafts that I already do.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to check in. And I kind of want to do a knitting sampler, because I was like, are there knitting samplers out there? Well, yes, there is. In fact, there's one on Creativebug.
There is.
And I thought, even just to like, because I was saying, I think a couple, or even the last episodes, like I don't hold the yarn correctly, or like, I don't have proper technique. Because I'm probably carrying over how I hold it for crochet, which really is different than how you can hold it for. And there's different ways to hold it for knitting, but I know when I watch videos, I'm like, oh, that it is more efficient the way they're doing it. But it's also comfortable for me, and it's the only way I can get it done right now. But it's like once I get a couple projects done, I do want to go back to like a foundation of like how to really be holding the yarn. So, or the fiber. And I guess I do the continental, because what's the throwing one is English, right? So continental is where you have it like in your left hand and you're working with if you're right-handed dominant, say.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
I don't need to go into that.
Within the last year, that was I don't want to advocate this because it is like it's a jump. It's a weird jump. But the thing that helped teach me how to continental knit was color work. Holding 2 colors of yarn.
Yeah, you do have to do it there.
Color work. You do have to become better about, being a little bit more ambidextrous. So that was really what helped me learn continental knitting. It's not an easy jump to go directly from regular knitting into color work without, having some practice or like picking a project where it's just Fair Isle, it's just 2 colors. You don't have any more than that. And you're switching back and forth really regularly. So it's like, I'm explaining this terribly, but your color switches are within a 4-stitch range. So you're not jumping from one color to another over a longer distance, which is harder to do. It messes with your tension when you're knitting. So like having a really intricate Fair Isle pattern is almost easier to learn than like something with the colors spaced far apart. So I would not advocate jumping into color work if you want to learn how to continental knit. It's kind of the hard mode of learning how to continental knit, but it's that was a crash course for me. It was a lot of trial and error with that one, so but very fun.
That's funny. And then I guess I made in my notes that in addition to the Creativebug challenges, that over the course of the year, how my crafting has changed or been freed up or whatever, was the Getting Creative With program, which I think each of us maybe has been on that. I don't know if
I never was, but yeah.
Participate, but
I was only on one.
Those were just really fun too. It was a really great program that one of our
I love that program. I've watched a lot of them.
And even just watching some of them was like, gave me ideas. Like I still go back to, I think it was plants was a theme. And Ksenia had done a weaving, using the branch of a tree, like where it splits into 2 branches. So there's probably a proper term for that. Anyways, using that as like the loom, like stringing that up and weaving on it. And it just looks so cool. So, it was really great opportunity to finally crochet with wire like I wanted to, and I made like a crocheted vase, and then working with plant materials. I did a thing with paper mache and stitching plants, and so that was been a lot of fun too. A lot of great programming on AADL TV. It's like it's been a great place to live over the past year.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't watched as many of Ksenia's Getting Creative With as I would have liked, but that when I watched that plant one where she did that project, the next walk that I went outside with my partner, we found a downed, I think it's an aspen tree that had fallen in a park in Ann Arbor, and it had really fine branches they're really pretty. They're like a silver white bark. So I broke off several pieces with the intention of using those for that project, to use up some of the scraps of yarn that I have. But they needed to stay in my apartment and dry for several months because they were still really green. This was last fall. And they're finally ready for me to use. They finally dried out enough. So they've been sitting in our office for like 6 months, completely in the way. My cat loves to chew on them.
Oh, yeah.
But they're finally ready to, and I broke them down a couple days ago and got them all set up so that when I'm out of town right now, so when I get back, I'm going to start that. I'm really excited for that.
I really appreciated the dead of winter a bit more too, working with plant materials, because anything out there was already so dried out, but it was also hardy enough to have survived so many different elements that it's going to be durable to work with. So it's kind of a great time of year, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Even though it's usually like the least favorite, that middle of February time. But we also had a lot of sun during then too. So doing like shadow drawing was cool. I mean, you couldn't really be outside, but like bringing the materials in and with the sun,
Yeah.
just like, I just love, I want to do more shadow drawing. That was something I really enjoyed from that art book challenge. So yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the only ones that I couldn't find any subject matter for. I was having a hard time finding shadows that were intricate enough to actually draw. So that was the only one that I actually skipped. Had a little bit of a harder time with that day, but
It's there. You can't do it.
Yeah.
yeah. We also had a lot milder of a winter than I was expecting in Michigan. We had a lot more sunny days, which has been really nice for my creative process. So it's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does make it easier. Although on the one hand, it's like, oh, to just be hunkered down with blankets and books and tea and you're knitting and all the things, you know, but then again, the sun gives you a lot of energy. But then it's like, I want to get up and go and be outside. And so whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all a balance.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we want to move into our sharing our works in progress as our end segment?
Sure.
Who wants to start?
So, one of my close friends who is a fan of the show is having a baby in September. So this has started me going down the baby knits rabbit hole, and I finished a mitten when I was in the car.
So cute.
It's just like ridiculous.
Knitting for babies is so fun because it's just like everything's finishable and it's tiny and yeah.
That was I've never wanted to work on baby knits before. For as long as I've been crocheting and knitting, it's never been at the forefront of, and I've had lots of other friends who have had babies over the last several years, and it was never something where I'm like, I really want to do this. But for some reason right now, when she said I'm having a baby, I was just like, oh my God, the booties and the mittens and the hats I'm gonna make, it's gonna be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I also love it because it's using up all of my scrap yarn.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's all colors that she really likes. So I was really excited about like, yes, I'm gonna be able to get rid of some of my stash.
I have a pattern that I've still never finished doing, which is for like it's a little booty, but it looks like a high top sneaker. It is like
Please
bought it like before I knew how to really do what I was doing, I think. And I don't know, it just took me too long and I never finished it to give it as a gift. So I only had like one booty, but yeah. I should go back and find that pattern because it was just so hilarious. So hipster and cute. So I don't know. I love tiny things in general. So
yeah.
like shoes and like the tiny Nikes and tiny Converses is just absolutely kills me every time. It's so cute.
I should make them for my cat. Of course, he wouldn't have any traction then in the house.
I can see a video in my head of your cat just like flailing. The booty's on and it brings me so much serotonin and I really like it. I think
well then, just might happen. Who knows? This just is a really random story. But I remember one time my sister, when we were kids, insisted on putting the apron from her Annie doll on our cat. And then she made like little felt slippers and that couldn't get away. Just
yeah. What are you doing?
Running around with an apron on. But anyways, so back to works in progress.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can just share really quick. I'm starting my book. Whoops, needle attached. My book of weavings. So this is what I have so far. There's 4. It's going to be 4 pages. So this one I've completed.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I thought it was fun too because it's like, oh, I can just stitch in it and weave in whatever direction. So it's kind of like an embroidery and weaving thing. But the way those pages work is I'll cut it so it'll be it'll pop out basically. You can see that very well. But so the weaving portion will be like sitting out. So that's what will be on the card. I can't remember what style this book is called, but it kind of folds up as an accordion and then you pull it out and everything pops out and it's really cool.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's going to be amazing.
It is just so much fun. So I think I'm going to weave like in a circle for the next one and maybe actually stitch a triangle just to keep with shapes. So it's fun how like themes develop. I mean, like when we did the art book, I was like, I don't know what my theme's going to be. And then it was like over time, it ended up dealing with a lot of like kind of like plants and weavings and time. So it's kind of funny how the content just ended up, melding. So
Yeah, it kind of creates itself. Like,
yeah. So it's fun to like work without that too much. It's good to have some structure and guidance, but it was fun to like see something just work out like that. So which reminds me of something I found in one of my sketchbooks. I don't know what it must have been from during a lecture in a class, and it was like, what is happy? And it was like, when things work out or come together, especially when it was a struggle. And then underneath it says, what is fear? And there's no answer. Which I was just like, I just couldn't answer. I was afraid to say.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's funny.
So Lucy, what you got your sweater?
Well, I'm so close to being done with my sweater. I was telling Heidi before you were here, Nancy, that I was intending on finishing it this past weekend, but then I had like a cut on my finger and the Band-Aid was just impeding me because when I'm on the ribbing, with double pointed needles and a Band-Aid didn't work. But that's it. That's an inch left on the sleeve, and then that's the whole sweater. You can't, there's needles sticking out of it.
That is so wonderful. I love all this stippling.
Yes, like this black yarn with these white little speckles.
So pretty.
And it's got, let's see, that's the front. So it's got like dropped shoulders almost. I don't know if you can see that there, but so we'll see if I wear it. I hope I do. I will. I'll make myself. I've done another sweater that I don't wear that much, but it's too heavy. This one is not heavy. It's going to be nice. And then I'm going to start, I got yarn to start the Gothic lace shawl, I think it's called, on TiinCanKnits. Gothic lace cowl. And I even got the yarn they recommend, but it's this, I've never knit in a color like this. It's kind of variegated, but it's really soft and nice.
Is it more of a peach kind of?
Yeah. It's melon, they're calling it.
That looks nice.
That's really lovely.
So we'll see. And then artist trading cards. I'm just gonna.
Gosh, that's something I've been wanting to do for years and years, and now I'm reminded of it, and so now, oh my God.
I just can't. But this has tiny little words on it that I cut out. It's just so fun because you can do all these techniques that we've learned, and then like painting with a credit card or. But I don't know and then ideally you're supposed to trade them, right? But right now that's not really, so.
Well, you could trade them for the mail.
I could. Maybe, or I could change up my display back here.
Have a wall of your trading cards. That would be really
cool.
That actually, a mosaic of your artist trading cards that you've created would be a really, really nice background.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's my goal.
Actually, it's gonna stay. Yay, my computer's not gonna slide. I finished a couple of things last night. So these are more based watercolor and watercolor marker things. But that's the mosaic patterns that's kind of similar to this day. Sorry. These were from the Lisa Congdon sketchbook challenge that we did a couple months ago. So this pastel was inspired by that, and it's a lot of pastels with metallics. And then this one, which is jewel tones with metallics, that my dad was watching me finish, and he was like, "It looks like wrapping paper." It's really pretty.
It does.
Yeah.
And I was really struck by how lovely that gold.
So vibrant.
And how vibrant that was. But I don't know what I'm going to put on the other half of that page. So that was something that I'm finishing. I'm working on filling this sketchbook that we got. Because I love
a great goal.
I love working with that sketchbook. And then the other, I pulled out a bunch of my works in progress knitting projects because I'm traveling. I'm I'm going to be in the car for a long time. I should try to find things that I can actually finish. And I pulled out my doodler shawl. And this is a Stephen West pattern, but it looks like a seashell.
Yeah, I remember this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It has the ripples on the bottom, I'm working on putting, it's an I-cord finish edge, so it's got like a thick tube of a finish on the edging. Actually easier to see from this side.
Yeah.
That tube. I'm going to put a second I-cord edging on it in this sand color that I think looks like a seashell. And then I'm going to try to sew like a picot edging on it so that it looks like the edge of a seashell. Wow. And then the bottom of it is a ripple that I'm going to do in this.
Great.
So light to dark to be the ocean. So the shawl, when it's finished, will hopefully look like a seashell on top of the waves.
It's amazing.
Which I'm really, really excited. I've been wanting to finish for a long time. So looking at that in my basket was like, this would be a good time to finish that because it's nice outside and it will remind me of the beach, which is good. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
And I know Heidi said it at the beginning, but thank you everyone so much for watching the podcast and for being with us on this journey. We've been so happy with the response from folks and all the comments and all the interactions that you've had with us and the people that have reached out with questions or comments or any kind of interaction. We really, really appreciate it. But that's all we had for everybody today. Like Heidi said earlier, we're going to be going on a bit of a break, but we will see you very soon. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and don't forget to love each other. Bye, everyone.